Okay, so a couple of new additions to my Viewport animations and JavaScript events. If you haven't seen what I'm doing with this, have a look at my last couple of videos, which shows what I'm doing. I've also got a GitHub here, which I'll put the link in the description again, where you can download the files. I'm currently up to version 0.0.6, and I've just added these two extra animations to it. So you can go directly to the code in GitHub, or you can go to the releases and just download the code for the latest release and use it at will. So what they are, so down the bottom here, I've got a highlighter and a sample box reveal. So let's look at the highlighters on the left-hand side first. And I've got this doing a couple of things. Let's ignore the background image change at the moment, which is from a JavaScript event. We'll come back to that. Just look at the actual highlight effect when I scroll that into view. And I've got this, by the way, I've got this looking at 40% of the viewport because the container, I've got margin on it, and it tracks the entire container, including the margin. So whenever that container there is within 40% of the bottom of the view or 40% of the top, which is what I've currently got it set to. The default is 20, then I want to trigger. Okay, so we look at the left-hand side, sample highlighter. I'm using defaults here, so I roll my mouse up and my highlight comes in from the left. And I've got a very slight rotation. I think I've got 1 degree rotation on that. We get the next one, if I scroll further up, there's a slightly more rotation, so a 2 degree rotation and a different background color, and that's just set through attributes. And scroll up again, and the last one rotates by 2 degrees anti-clockwise and uses a different background. That's pretty much what it is. And you can see the background color changing as these come into view. So this highlighter just came into view, and the background is these trees. The next one coming into view, the background is these mountains and lake. The next one comes into view and it's the ski fields. So that's pretty much what I'm going to demonstrate today. Now, in comparison, looking at the right-hand side, this is a box reveal. I'm using pretty much the same code, but I'm using a clip path to reveal the content rather than a background pseudo element to put the highlighter behind this here. So on the right-hand side here, if you watch it, they've got no text. And these are basically hitting, I think they're just hitting widgets set to hitting 3. Doesn't matter what it is. So if I scroll into view now, watch the right-hand side where my mouse is, and you see it comes into view by using a clip path. So you can see it's not there, and then it's there using the clip path. Same with the next one. Uses the clip path to reveal, clip path to reveal. So that's the difference between these two. And I think it's pretty good. So let's have a look at the CSS first. I won't go through all this in detail. This is in the GitHub, so if you want this, download it. So all I've done is added these highlighters. I've set some attributes, or I've got a default back shadow when it's in, which is a 2 pixel by 2 pixel standoff, 6 pixel blur, and black with a bit of transparency. I want no box shadow when it's out of view, and I want a red for the background color with a opacity of 0.6. So that is our default there. And a border radius of 5 pixels, padding of 10. We can actually control that from Elementor, but I just thought I'd chuck it in here. And a rotation, display. So I've got that set to inline block, so we're only looking at the first intersection on this, not intersection, sorry, that's incorrect wording. The first DOM element underneath the container we've added our tracking to, which is the widget wrapper in this case for that. And I've got it set by default to inline block, so we only want to wrap the content. If you have it set to block, this will be the full width of that container. So you can change that if you wish to. All right, so that's the settings there. Now, because we're using some before and after pseudo classes, it messes up the Elementor editor. So I'm adding this rule at the beginning to say I don't want this to apply inside the Elementor editor. and that basically makes it editable without any problems. So anything that's going to affect the editor in your CSS, just add this beforehand, and that'll stop it from applying in the editor. So that's my where are we? The highlighter. So when we've got our in view, then we basically want to get rid of that because that was a mistake from previously. All we want to do is set our width to 100, which it already should be on, so we can probably get rid of that as well. So this is residual from playing previously. Gotta love demos. Okay, so all I'm doing is setting my box shadow to the shadow in, and I'm transitioning the width over the transition duration, using the transition timing function by default, which is ease out, but you can change that, whatever you want, and then having a delay of whatever delay we put on there. So the idea of that is that with these, you can have these come into view. Let's say, for example, on this right-hand side one here, if I put a 0.5 second delay on that, these two would actually come into the view at the same time, but this would animate 0.5 seconds later if I put a delay on it. So that's what that's for. So that's that, and the box reveal, it's pretty much the same except for I'm not using the pseudo element. I'm just using the actual element, and I'm using a clip path, setting it to a polygon of a square of no size, translating through to a polygon, which is the full width and full height. And that's pretty much the same as everything else. So have a look through the CSS, but that's pretty much what that does. Right, now that's the CSS. Now to get this working, where are we? Over here. All I'm doing is adding on these highlighters, my VPA highlighter class. So back over here, that's the VPA highlighter that I just created in the CSS there. So I'm adding that and the WPG reanimate, which tracks it. Again, look at previous videos. This is the same on all three of these. That's the two classes we need to add. The differences are in the attributes. So if we look at the attributes for the first, I'm setting a data image source attribute. This is what I want it to change to when that particular element comes into view. And I've got some JavaScript down here, which I'll work through with that. And I'm setting an event prefix of highlighter, and I'll show you that as well. Then we're setting our data intersection observer IO top of -40, bottom is -40. So we want to look at that element when it's within 40% of the top or 40% of the bottom. Simple as, isn't it? All right. And then the next one is exactly the same, except for we're changing the image we want for the data image source. The rest of this is exactly the same, except for we've got a style to override our variable. So in this one, I want it to rotate by 2 degrees, and I want to change the background color to the yellow, which we see here. So that's the yellow. And then the last one, again, exactly the same as the other one, except for we're setting the rotation to -2 degrees and the background color to a, a green with some transparency. And that's the difference between them. Pretty straightforward. So on the box reveals, the only difference in classes between the left and the right hand side here is I use VPA box reveal instead of VPA highlighter. And we look at the attributes, we're tracking 40% of top and bottom. The second one there, we're looking at same, but I'm just rotating by 2 degrees, changing the background color. Third one, again, exactly the same, but I'm rotating by -2 degrees. Let's make that say 3 degrees. See what difference that makes. And changing the background color. Now let's have a look over here. See how that's got a slight rotation? If I do an F5 here, it's more rotated. So simple as changing those style attributes to override these CSS variables here. Now, again, look at my previous videos on how this all works, but what I've then done is with these highlighters, mention that I've set a data event prefix to highlighter, and I've set a data image source to an image. In my JavaScript here, all I'm doing is getting the this section here by ID. So the actual section that I want to change the background on. I'm adding an event listener, highlighter underscore. So that is from this attribute here where it's the data event prefix. I set that to highlighter. So my highlighter underscore track view in. So whenever it comes in, I want it to get the detail from the event, get the target, which will be the actual element that triggered it, and set the style of the background image to the URL of the dataset image source. So that's like I know I keep saying this in every video, but that's like in the actual attribute that would be data image src. So data-image-src translates in JavaScript to dataset.image. Get rid of the dash and make the S a capital. So it's camel case, removing the dashes, removing the data. So that's pretty much how that works. So all I'm doing is that every time an event fires to say that this is detected in the view, fire this listener here and change the image to whatever was set in that data attribute on that class there. That's pretty much how that works. So I think it's really, really cool. Now, what I'm really liking about this way of doing it is that it doesn't matter whether I'm animating a clip path, a custom CSS for anything there, some zooming, some rotating. I'm using exactly the same methodology. I've just got to create some new CSS rules for the animation and set the attributes to track and do whatever I want it to do. So I think it's really cool. I'd love to get some feedback on this. What do you think? Do you think this is a good way of doing it? Do you think it's you can think of better ways of doing this? If there is, let me know. I appreciate any feedback that you can give me. Thank you.